Support this podcast at patreon.com/Kris Karl Photography Podcast. Okay, perfect. So we always have to start these podcasts off by framing how it is that you came to become a photographer. So what was it that made you pick up a camera in the first place?
I went to high school in Canada. I was close to my second year of being in Canada, and I was taking a photography class in grade 10, I believe. And that's when I completely fell in love with photography. I fell in love with the way that I was taking the images. But what I loved the most was the developing part. I had a dark room where I was able to develop all of my film. Eventually ended up developing my entire classes because they didn't necessarily like it. And I would basically live in the dark room. I would stay after hours and develop different films. And then I was, trying to see what the chemicals were like. Everything about it was actually so new to me. And the process was incredible. So I think that was the most definitive moment in photography for me, where it started.
And what was it that made you want to start photographing people?
I think it was when I just needed to photograph people when I was already with that camera in hand. And I started photographing my sister, my little sister. And she was maybe 5 or 4 at the time. And I really wanted to capture different moments of her. And I already remember trying different things with her, like working with perspective and making her fit in my hand kind of thing. Very, cliche things. But I don't know. I think I was always attracted to people, really. I did try, shooting still life, but I feel like I really like that sort of interaction between a person and someone. It doesn't have to be a talk, but it's just having someone in front of me. There is a special connection between the person and through the lens. It's different. It's something that I'm almost like trying to get in that person's mind somehow.
So something that I really want to go a little bit down a rabbit hole on with you is you have this phenomenal vision with fashion. I think you have an incredible ability to create these very vast concepts, but with loads of room for interpretation. Mm-hmm. Where do you find your inspiration? Are you finding it within photography, or is it from other media, or just in day-to-day life?
I'd say most of my inspiration comes from my dreams. But then it can really, really depend on how my day goes. I mean, I can be walking by and all of a sudden I see, I don't know, the textures of the clouds, and I'm like, oh my God, that looks amazing. Or, in the evening or when on the sunset, the colors excite me. Sometimes it's textures. Sometimes I see a rock that it's absolutely beautiful, or crystals. Like, it can really come from anything. But going back and really trying to have an idea of where my ideas come from, or when I feel the best when I'm on set and I'm trying to let go of this sort of thought is when I can clearly see it in my dreams. And it's this sort of weight lifted off my shoulders once I see it on the screen. Like, it's tangible and it's such a magical moment. So I would say that my dreams are a major part of my inspiration.
Is it always a sort of a solo effort on your part, or is it something that you collaborate with others in bringing? Obviously, the idea has to come together with other people's help, but the actual the birth of the idea is that all you, or do you go to other people and help and sort of take inspiration from them?
I'm going to say most of the times I would come with an idea and present it to the artists that I feel will feel excited about it, because sometimes I feel like I can have very happy and bubbly and colorful thoughts. And I know the people that will be excited about those things because they love color and they love, expressing themselves in that manner. But then I also have other thoughts that are a little bit darker and very, black, gray, and white. And I know that I have to present it to those people that I know are going to be excited to, maybe going a little bit more and nostalgic side. And when I do present the idea, yes, 100%, I will always listen to my team if they have different ideas too. Maybe the fashion stylist is telling me she has a vision with this type of texture. That already kind of starts building up into the idea itself. I don't always have the idea. Sometimes I have people that come to me and say, look, I have this idea of doing this set of images that is based on this and this and that. And depending of obviously they come to me for maybe because they want to see how my vision will sort of develop the idea, and we will go off of that. So I will, if it's something like, sorry, let me see how I can rephrase this. But yes, I'm going to say that 90% of the shoots that I do are my ideas. And then the rest is something that it's more collaborative. Sometimes it's like, okay, what do you feel like shooting? What do you need for your portfolio? What do you need because sometimes maybe I'm the one that's dried out and I need inspiration from others. So
something that I'm quite fascinated by with you is you have this incredible ability to blend graphic design in with your photography. Is the shooting the part that you enjoy the most, or is it actually the refining the image and the retouching that you enjoy?
Yeah, I think the retouching is definitely part of it. Sorry, it's the whole process. The entire process is very exciting. Just from the beginning, when I have to build the mood board, and it totally gets me excited about how the idea is going to develop to the shooting day, and just the entire process from beginning to end. It's very exciting. So there's not one part that I love most about it. I think maybe just the building up for it. It's the most exciting part. On the day of the shooting, you know exactly what's going to happen. But then again, I'm the kind of person that leaves all the doors open. So if anything were to happen that we need to switch the game, I'm ready for it. So and it always depends, sometimes I have I have an idea and I know exactly how I'm going to shoot it. I know what kind of lighting I'm going to use. I know exactly where the model is going to be posing. And then the model shows up and I get a completely different vibe, just a different way that I thought I was going to be shooting it. It changed. And I talked to the team and I say, look, I have an idea. We can still keep it within the same concept, but I think I'm going to just try something different in terms of lighting. We ended up with the same concept, but maybe not necessarily how I planned it. And that's the sort of thing that I think it makes it very exciting too on set. And that, yes, the post-production, I don't know. I do love it because it's like the finishing touches and sometimes when I'm on set, I know exactly, I look at the image and people are like, are you serious? That's the picture you chose. I'm like, oh, no, just wait. And it's because I can see it finished. So that's the exciting part too, is knowing that if there is some sort of comp work or some other, touches or maybe, like you said, graphic design or any sort of additions, I can see it completely finished. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. But again, it's something with the retouching part, it's been a very up and down kind of thing. I feel like I've always been learning and there's been, I'm trying to keep up with the technology too. So there's different tools and different, apps and different ways of enhancing and playing with your images. So sometimes I go on one direction. And I look at those pictures now that were done maybe like 3 years ago, and oh my God, Natasha, what were you thinking? So it's just those things that it's almost like, yes, you're always evolving, and you have to become aware of maybe refining your taste and what your final image should look like or would look like. But that's just comes to my personal taste. So that's something that I've been evolving over the years in terms of my retouching skills. And, but just to answer your question, I feel like the entire process is absolutely wonderful, especially on a project that I'm really passionate about.
So when it comes to doing your commercial work, is it difficult for you to translate someone else's vision with your style into an end product?
I think I was always so open to work with other people. And when this doesn't necessarily come to clients, I listen. I really do listen to what people like themselves. And when it comes to a client, I listen to what their expectations are and what they're trying to say with whatever the image is going to be doing for their product, or what the story behind it is. And I really, really try to soak it in and marinate it. And then that way I can actually have a clear idea of what their vision is like. So that's the fun part for me too. It's almost, again, getting into their head and seeing it so I can translate it visually. And I feel that that's something that I've always done, including with my team members. Like if they have a specific idea or a vision in mind, I always try to listen and execute it for them too. Most of my clients are also hairdressers who have very strong ideas, very strong concepts, and it all revolves about the hair, which is basically most of how my photography business even started. So doing that and listening what their stories or their concepts were and why they were inspired, it was almost like me like molding into their vision and trying to execute it the best I could the way they saw it.
Something I've always loved but have been sort of perpetually terrible at is any kind of editorial work. What is the secret to a successful editorial in fashion?
I think that when you are, first of all, I think that you need to have a good concept in mind, a story to tell. And it doesn't have to be anything. I don't know. It needs to, you need to feel something about it. I feel that that's where you get the most, not only for yourself and your team, but even for people that are watching it. It's like you want to have that reaction. And it can be any sort of reaction. It can be the reaction that you absolutely love the image, just something that you are attracted to, or something that people are completely unsure what it is that they're looking at. It's like, I don't know why, like they're not attracted, but the fact is that they got a reaction out of it.
Right.
So I find that for you as a photographer, I feel like when you are shooting an editorial, it's your opportunity to bring something that it's important to you, no matter what it is, and translate it visually. So it's, I don't know if there's a secret, but I find that before you click the shutter, make sure that you're asking yourself, is this giving you a feel? Like you're feeling something from it? And again, like, it's so personal too. So if you feel something about it, that's all that you need. That's all you need. And you can have the rest of the pictures for the rest of the team. And all you need is that one picture. I do that. I try to do that in every shoot that I do, is that I have at least 1 to 5 different pictures that I am extremely happy about. And, they're iconic enough in my eyes.
Your work has so much energy and emotion that I think is often missing in fashion and beauty, especially sort of in the last 10 years. How do you keep energy up on set, and how do you get that emotion out of your models?
It depends, really. I find that music is a big factor. Sometimes I ask the model, it really depends. Sometimes I want a different mood, but I don't do it purposely. It's just I walk in set, I play some music while I'm setting up. It really depends on the day. But then there's days that I don't really know who it is that I'm shooting with, like the model. So as soon as they walk in, I make sure that I am talking to them, I get to know them, because again, that's really important to me. I not only for shooting purposes, but because I like to know who I'm spending the day with. And again, like music will probably come up, and I make sure that I play something that it's, funky enough for them to put them in the mood that, somewhere in the realm of what we're going to be shooting. But yes, I feel like energy also comes with the people that I am working with. And then I'm talking with the team members. So fashion stylist, makeup artist, hairdresser, my assistants. Like, I've been extremely lucky to work with incredible people, just not only talented, just beautiful people inside and out, that where we all work collaborative. We love each other. There's a lot of really good energy that goes around, and that's what makes the entire shoot go so smoothly. And again, everybody's trying to get a good picture out of it. So it's actually, it's a collaboration with all of us.
Something I'm always fascinated by is how different photographers deal with adversity and maybe shoots where everyone isn't on the same page, or maybe they're not getting on with each other. Maybe the energies don't quite match up. How do you get through a shoot where it's not feeling right, but you need to get something from it?
I can say that's happened to me once, clearly. And it was a new team I've never worked with, but I was excited to work with. And that was one of those days when we had something in mind to shoot something. And when I started to see the models come in, I said, you know what? I feel like maybe we should go into a different direction. And maybe it didn't work for them,
Right.
Whereas no, we wanted to shoot something else. And as soon as I said that, and I started setting up and I started shooting, I feel that they were just not. It was. Yes, that was a very uncomfortable set. So I tried my best to stay communicative as possible. The pictures turned out well anyways, and they said that they loved them. But everybody's being very polite, I think, that day. I know for sure I like them, but I don't like being, I like being, again, understanding and make sure that everybody else loves them. So it was one of those awkward sets. And I can say that staying in communication and being open, but because it was a new team and maybe they were also not, I don't know, maybe they were afraid of speaking up to me or saying that they weren't really feeling it. It made the whole shoot end faster too. So we shot everything super quick. But it was, again, I remember that day. I really wanted it to end too, but the shots were coming out really cool. And I was able to talk to I ended up shooting with some of the team members later just because of work. And I can see where the differences were. And again, it was new team members that didn't work with each other, and they didn't know not that they didn't know how to speak up. I guess they were just not into the new changes. And I guess, again, maybe the way that I would do it next time is make sure that maybe with new team members, I will stick to the plan and not necessarily go very spontaneous as I usually go with people that I do usually work with. So, but that was a creative, again. If it was a paid work, it wouldn't have happened that way. So,
well, in your opinion, something else that I think is really interesting, and I've heard a very wide variety of answers on this, but to you, what makes a model great?
It's personality. I find the personality is very important, and having when it comes from a strong and unique personality, really, and that comes from within. It's not forced or anything like that. I feel like it's very interesting, and it's hard to put in words, really, because I have worked with some models that really give me all of the feels, no matter what it is that we're shooting, and and I guess they become my muses, because it just there's something about them personally and physically that attract me, and again, it's just, I guess, what I also find beautiful. It's not necessarily the way that you look. It's more about what that person really is. Did I make sense there? But
100%, 100%. In terms of your preference when it comes to shooting, retouching, everything involved, do you prefer beauty or commercial work or editorials? What's the thing that you really get excited to do?
I think fashion is definitely exciting, because there's all these other elements that you have to play with, which come with just textures and layers, and that comes into play a lot into how you're going to be shooting it, and how is it related to the concept and things like that. But makeup as well. I mean, you can have so much fun with makeup. It doesn't have to be traditional makeup either. It can be something very unique, and also tell a story, a full out story with just beauty. Commercial work is fun because it's very straight up, and again, as long as I make my job sell the product that it's needed to be sold, it's almost I don't know, it's a good feeling. It's like, okay, yeah, I've done my job. It's just a job, right? But of course, the most exciting work is the personal work or editorial work, creative work.
How much of your work is personal and how much is paid work?
Well, some of the creative work is also paid work, but I'm going to say that 80% creative, 20% commercial, let's say. And what I mean by commercial is very defined way of shooting, which is the commercial, very advertising, kind of look of things, which, maybe more older brands that have been in the industry for some time already have a presence in their way that they are presented, and that's very commercial, let's say. And that's what I mean by the 20%. It's almost like there's not that much creative background that I can add to it, unless it's maybe the way that maybe art directing the makeup or how the hair or maybe what they're wearing, but not necessarily being super creative with lights, for example. On the other 80%, it's mostly me working on my personal work or creative work, or maybe commission work for different magazines that will allow me to be as creative and give me the freedom to work within, when, maybe they give me an actual, maybe not a concept, but they give me some boundaries depending on who it is that it's commissioned the job. But at the end of the day, I am able to basically bring it to a different level, which is what my vision will be.
From your point of view, obviously it's very hard to sort of self-judge, because I think people are generally more, you get two kinds of people. You get people that are sort of way overcritical of themselves and they have a lot of sort of self-doubt, and then you get the other side of the coin, which is people that are far too confident without maybe having the ability to back it up. And in your opinion, just from your position, what's your worst habit as a photographer?
Creating barriers all the time. I think I do that a lot, and I try not to. I try to convince myself that I'm not that person. But I think I am. And it could be because I'm in that realm of photographers that are a little bit not shy. I don't think I consider myself shy, but I just don't think, I think I have so much to learn and so much that I can be better at, and I'm not yet. And I feel that it does put barriers into things that I would like to do. And it's self-sabotaging for sure.
Very interesting. That's actually not at all what I was expecting. That's fascinating. If you were to give advice to someone, let's say there's someone out there that's just picking up a camera in the last, say, year or two, and they're looking to make a go of establishing themselves, learning the skill of being a fashion photographer or a beauty photographer.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give someone in terms of building up a very good portfolio in a relatively quick amount of time? You know, how would they go about doing that?
Look, I've been doing photography for the past almost 6 years, and I'm still learning. It's if you're a new photographer and you want to pursue photography, I think you need to be absolutely passionate about it too, and put a lot of work. Don't just shoot for shooting, but shoot with intention, and make sure that that you're passionate about it. No matter really what it is, make sure that you understand the technical part of the camera, technical part of the lights. Make sure that you learn it inside and out, so then you can utilize it however it is that you want to use it. As you grow, eventually you'll start to know when to use those techniques depending on what it is that you're shooting. And that's exactly what I did, I guess. I was very experimental, and I am still. I'm still very curious about using different methods and trying to find new ways of shooting or processing images.
Okay, so from your perspective, what is the emotional reaction that you're hoping to get from people that view your images?
I guess just that, an emotional reaction, no matter it is what it is. Really, it's just that. I think emotional reaction is the deepest you can go to a stranger without knowing exactly what it is that you touched. And again, it's the same thing as going back to inspiration. There's things that make me feel ways. Like it's just it could be the colors or the textures or something that intrigues me, that it's making me feel a certain way, or brings me back to a memory, or I'm curious about something, or how can I push this further? That sort of idea. And I feel like when people look at my work, I guess I would like to know that people get some sort of reaction. And again, and I said this earlier, I think that it, maybe sometimes what I'm shooting is not necessarily something that people would like. It's still a reaction. And I think the emotional attachment adds value to it. So
with the rise of Instagram being so prominent in pretty much everyone's lives these days, it's led to things like e-commerce being almost overwhelming in the sense of the way that's used as the barometer of fashion photography. You've got influencers, people at home using their phone to take pictures of themselves wearing stuff that they've been sent by a company. Do you worry that the art of modeling is being lost a little bit?
No, I mean, no. I think that it's just another tool. I mean, yes, I think for us in a certain degree is being manipulative, but I think a platform like Instagram is great for me to even understand or see a person, let's say a model or somebody who I would like to shoot or I'm interested in, to know a little bit more about their lifestyle. And if I see that their Instagram is full of, maybe just selling me things all the time, I know that right away, maybe it's not somebody I want to work with, or no, I shouldn't say that. It's more like somebody who I know where their values are at when it comes to Instagram. Maybe it's not the way to get to know that person.
Right.
So I think it's exposing that person in a specific way. But I don't think it's not worrisome. It's just how the internet is becoming. You're a selling tool all of a sudden. So yeah.
Bit of a loaded question. I apologize if this sounds like I'm being there's a motivation behind the question, but it is a genuine one. Are there advantages or disadvantages to being a female fashion photographer?
A female fashion photographer?
Yeah.
Well, I've lost a job actually once because I was a female photographer, but that was a long time ago.
How so?
Well, I think they spoke with my assistant at the time, who was a male assistant, and maybe they thought that he was the photographer. And when I went for an in-person meeting, I showed up and they thought that I was the assistant, and I wasn't. Also, I have to tell you, I do look younger than I am. So I probably did look like a teenager to them. And they were just, I could see it on their face. They were just not, I just think it was definitely misogynistic. I think I'm saying it right.
Yep. Misogynistic.
Yes, that's right. And I've never, I worked with the same company, but not that one person again. And I think it was probably because of that. I don't even think that person is still in the company. So, and I think it's probably, I'm going to say most likely because of that. But that was the only time that I saw a disadvantage.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me just ask in terms of, is there a positive to being a female photographer that maybe people don't know about?
You got me thinking. The positive thing is that I get to work with a lot of other women too. And when it's a full-on women team, it's very satisfying. Not because working with men it's not, because it isn't that way. I think that there's a lot of emotion too when it comes to women. You know what? It's a hard question. It's a hard question.
I'm so sorry. I'm a pretty mean person. I do ask some slightly tougher questions.
No, I like them.
From my point of view, as a male photographer, I've been in the position where I've had people tell me about some of the terrible things that they've had said to them or done. Like female models have had stuff said to them by male photographers, and then I'm then sort of overly aware of the way that I'm talking or the way that I interact, so that I don't bring up those same things. And I think that you do suffer the consequences of people before you. So I don't think it's a case of like, men good, women bad, or women good, men bad. It's just, I think that there are inherent personality traits to, especially to the way that men behave in the fashion industry. I think we've seen that over the last 10, 15 years. And I think other people do suffer the consequences. And I think a complete guess, I would imagine that there's a positivity to being a bit more of a non-threat as a woman on a female shoot, because there's going to be that kind of that camaraderie, and you guys are going to get along on a much safer level without that kind of stupid outsider ruining things.
No, absolutely. You know what? You're right. And again, like, I guess I just haven't put myself in men's or a photography who's male shoes before. I have heard tons of different stories from female models telling me about how they felt on a shoot with a male model. With a male photographer before, but I guess I never put myself as a photographer in a male perspective on how they need to run a shoot and not sound, or because again, like I could be very, maybe, I don't know, get their hair out of their face, or like, adjust their jacket, or if anything, and it's not anything sexual, it's something that it's very much, it wouldn't seem that way. So I guess that's the positive. Just like you said, there's a little bit more room for me to be me and if I do need to get in touch with the model just to fix something or to move the hair out of the face, it wouldn't be seen as if I was, I don't know, maybe, I don't know how to say it in.
You don't seem as aggressive. I mean, it's something that,
Yeah.
It's something that I've seen quite often as a male photographer. I mean, I have a set of rules when it comes to working with females, and it actually applies the same as when I'm working with male models, in the sense that I don't touch at any point. I don't adjust hair. I don't help adjust clothing, anything like that. I don't ever think it's really right from my perspective anyway. I also have a very sort of strict way in which I refer to like posing. So I only use certain words. There's especially in an English accent, there's a horrible way in which certain words sound when it comes to body parts, that it doesn't sound good at all. So I've made sure that, you know, when I've taught workshops in the past, I've always been like, so this is a chest, this is shoulders, those are hips. I don't want to hear other words that people might use about those kinds of areas. Like, you need to keep it very straightforward, because otherwise you're going to make people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's another thing, is I want to make sure the models do feel comfortable at all times. And I for example, for posing, I don't even ever think of touching anybody's legs and putting them in a specific first way that I needed to. I just don't find it natural. So. Mm-hmm. And yes, maybe that way will be a little bit more aggressive, and I wouldn't like that even myself. But I do put myself in the model's shoes to see what would be the best way to talk to them. And I think it goes the same with male models too. I make sure that I don't come across as if I'm hitting on them or anything. It's more like, no, this is we're working. It's a working environment, and we're having fun at the same time, but I'm not in any way whatsoever, making this any more than what it is. So yeah, I guess maybe going back to your question and answering it, I find that maybe as a female photographer, there is certain advantages. But I still do have to be very careful in the way that I communicate, and maybe just I communicate to the models and the team members too.
Now that I've just pissed off every single male photographer of models by saying what I've said, let's move to something slightly more positive. In terms of when you are shooting, something I always find quite fascinating is sort of directorial style, as much as how often you're shooting, in terms of are you someone that takes a lot of frames for each set? Do you take a lot of photos and then sieve through to find the one that works? Or are you someone that really works on getting everything right and then taking the shot? Like, what's your style?
I don't think I have a definitive style, but I do think that coming from a film background, because that's where it all started for me, I did really take the time to find the shot first. And I find that I do that on set as well. I do shoot a lot of frames when it comes to movement though. And if there's a specific frame that I'm looking for, and it has to have, either the dress moving a certain way or the hair moving a certain way, or there's some sort of action that I need to catch, then that's when I get more of the higher frame rate. And I use that also for my advantage. I like to work with it afterwards with GIFs and making something out of it too. If I'm shooting so many frames a second.
With your portfolio as a whole, do you have specific images that are like babies to you that you absolutely love and that will never come out of the portfolio? Or are you someone that's quite detached and you've got no problem at all with just kind of cutting out old work and putting in new work?
Oh God, no, I'm totally attached. I am totally attached to a lot of them. And the different reasons. I mean, also the fact that I guess they're also, some of them are very much encrypted in me because of a dream that I just, like I said earlier, was just this weight off my shoulders. It's almost like, I was able to say it without saying it. And some of it, I mean, I look back at it, I was actually not too long ago that I was going back into my website and trying to, declutter, I guess. And and it was hard for me because some of them I am emotionally attached to them, whether if they're, and I look at them and there's so many things that are wrong to them in my eyes, but I remember the emotional feeling I got out of it, and there is some sort of attachment to it. I need to think smarter though. And I'm saying that out loud so I can do it. But yeah.
Need to be more ruthless.
Yeah.
You don't even sound convinced.
Yeah, I know.
You've mentioned film a couple of times now. Is that something you still do? Do you still shoot much film and do you still develop?
Not as much as I would love to, but I do still have my film camera, and I have a few, but the one that I bring on set with me just for spontaneous times, which is very rare actually that I get to use it because I get so excited and so into it and on set that at the end of the day, we're wrapping up and I'm putting the cameras away and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot. So, but I do bring my Hasselblad on set almost all of the time, just because if there's a moment that I need to have it, and I don't develop myself anymore. I had to pretty much I donated all of my darkroom stuff because it was getting old, it was getting unused, and I was getting myself into a world that it's all digital. And unfortunately, I didn't have either the time or I just went ahead and I started doing the digital. So I do have a printing house that I'm very close to, and I develop all my film there once I finish our roll, which is takes a while.
In terms of your camera collection at the moment, I'm not someone that's particularly big on talking about gear. It's something I've been criticized on the podcast in the past for, because there's a lot of photographers that all they want to talk about is gear, and I tend to try and avoid it. But what are you using as your sort of day-to-day go-to camera?
Right now, I'm using the 5D Mark IV, the Canon, and that's my go-to camera for pretty much everything. But I have a collection of different Canon cameras. I mean, Canon was my very first digital camera I owned, and I just sort of slowly started upgrading model by model. I don't have all of the models, but I have, I started with the Rebel, then I went into the 5D, the 5D Mark II, and 3 and 4. So slowly I started to develop just upgrading my gear. But yeah, my go-to is the 5D Mark IV.
And in terms of lenses, what are your must-haves?
Okay, so every time I go on set, I bring almost all of my lenses, or at least the most flexible lenses, because at the end of the day, I probably ended up using all of them. I have my 100 millimeter macro lens. I have 16 to 24. I have 70 to 150, I believe. Yeah. And 50 millimeter, 85, 24 to 105. Did I say that? No. Anyways, I have a different lenses. So from very wide but I do love using my prime lenses. But the wide lenses are really nice too. So I have a little bit of everything. That's basically my go-to kit.
And the last thing I'd like to ask you before I let you go, again, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, is just who your influences are in terms of other photographers. Do you have any favorite photographers at the moment?
Yes, I do, but I try not to. I try to basically get all my inspiration either from paintings or music or illustrators, because I do love some of the photographers that I'm going to mention right now. And I can't help it sometimes, just like want to be able to do what they're doing too. But yeah, so it's like, and you're based from England, so most of them are from there too. Like Nick Knight or Solveig Sundsbo, or I also like Zema Yeste, Ryan McKinley, then we can go all the way back, or Leia Colombo, Sally Mann. Like it really varies, I mean, I cannot really go back and go tell Ivan Penn, just all kinds of different photographers are inspiring in different ways too.
It's fascinating that you say that you draw your inspiration from outside of photography, because I think that's actually a really smart thing to do. We're in an age of people following a lot of trends and people trying to look like other people doing the same thing, and it becomes almost like a snake eating its own tail. It doesn't seem to progress at all. So I think that's a really good piece of advice people should follow, is to look outside of photography for photographic inspiration. That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's one of the main things that I try for myself to, not look at those. I mean, not because I don't want to, of course I admire them, but it's just, so I also get a little bit of I get to actually develop my own aesthetic. But that's the thing, is I feel that even my own aesthetic is so diverse that I get to try it all and see and like it all. It's all part of me. But yeah, even I would say even fashion designers, there's so many beautiful pieces and beautiful designs that fashion designers make, that even that as an inspiration itself, it's already making me want to shoot a certain way. So I think that's also very exciting for me.
It's been absolutely wonderful to talk to you. The main thing that we have to do with this podcast is to make sure people know where they go so they can see all of your amazing work. So what's your Instagram and your website and so on?
Oh, it's just my name. It's Natasha Gerschon, NatashaGerschon.com. And in Instagram, it's just my first and last name altogether, Natasha Gerschon.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's been amazing.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a wonderful conversation.
An ocean, a cave, a dream that no one could save, a shelter, a whole act, a light that died with the night. You and I, we got our differences. Yet I thought we were more alike than unlike. Months of rain and chest pain. What's the plan? Heavy breathing, stay insane. Grab my hand. Everything is grey inside this narrow maze.